What makes a person of interest? Coach Micheal Burt cuts to the chase, interviewing some of the biggest names in the world. How do they think? What makes them tick? What are their thought processes? And how they became a person of interest.
Coach Micheal Burt, welcome to the show, my man.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. And I love having these exchanges, and I like your energy, and I really love your concept. I think a lot of people are trying to figure out how to get to the next level. And I think it's a very powerful missing structure for a lot of people.
I could not agree, man. I really appreciate you being here. And I'm excited for this because there are a lot of coaches out there, but you're the real deal, man. I mean, you are very accomplished. You live what you preach, and you're a former championship basketball coach. You've worked with some massive Fortune 500 companies, coaching them. You've spoken at 10X with Grant Cardone and Ed Milet and a lot of big hitters, and you've got a very strong reputation out there. So I'm excited to really delve into what it means to be a coach and how to unlock people's performance from somebody who's performed at such a high level for so long. So just to get some context here, the word coach, I think, can be misconstrued or not fully understood. So I'm just curious, in your terms, what is a coach and what does a coach actually do?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think a coach is a person that engages you in a set of systematic behaviors that allows you to do something tomorrow you simply cannot do today. Okay. A coach helps you find and fill your missing structures. A coach has conversations with you that you may or may not want to have. They challenge you to do some things you may or may not want to do. But a good coach can really literally take you to a place that you didn't even know that you even wanted to go to. So the difference between me and lots of people who call themselves coaches is I was an actual coach. Like, I spent a decade of my life as a women's basketball coach, and I had to take kids from all walks of life, all socioeconomic backgrounds, and I had to put them into a system. And we built a national powerhouse. That powerhouse won 7 of 9 championships. And I was using very interesting models. I was using the whole person theory. I was using a lot of business models over in the athletic world. And people were constantly asking me, what are you doing? How are you winning like this? Like, what are you doing with these kids? And so that's really what prompted me to start writing the books. I had no intention of coaching adults. I wanted to coach kids. I wanted to go to college and be the next Gino Auriemma or the next Pat Summitt. That was my dream, right? Like I had no intention of building a coaching business. I had no intention of coaching companies. But so many people were constantly asking me, will you speak to my group? Will you motivate my group? Will you teach my group? And I said, I don't have time trying to win championships. I'm just going to write it in these books. And next thing you know, I started writing the books, and then the books led to more speaking engagements. And so I would go out and coach a company like Dell Computers or State Farm Insurance. And they would say, man, we loved it. Will you come back? And pretty soon people began asking me, could we pay you to coach our people? And they began offering me, in some cases, 6 figures, to come in and coach their people. And so after I built a championship culture, I retired at 31 years old to do what I do today. And we built a multi-million-dollar coaching company.
That's a really incredible evolution there. I can't wait to get into your methodologies and your concepts and dive into that. But I'm curious because with coaching, I think this question comes up a lot is a coach someone who has proven results in the area that they're coaching you in, or is it just someone who really is optimizing your psychology and setting you up to win? Does it even matter?
I think that's a really good way to look at it. I look for demonstrated capacity. Now, let me put it in the context of who would be coaching me. Like, as I look for people to coach me, I am looking for people who have gone to the next level in my industry. Okay. And so when you mention a guy like Milet or Cardone, or these are guys that have been in the business a lot longer than me, because I'm 43 years old, and a lot of these guys have been doing this a lot longer than I have. And so when I'm asking a question, who do I want coaching me? Well, I could get coaching from Chris Voss on negotiation. I could get coaching from Sharon Lecter on how she built Rich Dad, Poor Dad companies with Kiyosaki. I could get coaching from Tim Story and how to find my rhythm in life or bounce back, right? I could get coaching from Ed Milet on how he built 50,000 people in his downline. So what I'm looking for is a very specific thing when I'm choosing a coach of do they have a demonstrated capacity to help me? Have they done it, and have they codified doing it, and can they help me do it? Now, I coach people that earn more income than I do or make more money than I do. You may say, well, what are you coaching them on? Well, I'm a specialist in activating the prey drive in a culture. So a lot of wealthy people hire me to come in and coach their people because they know their people have a lot more potential, but they don't know, either they don't want to fool with it, right? Like a lot of the owners and CEOs are like, look, we need to hit these numbers. That's not my skill set. My skill set is putting deals together or doing this. Coach, you come in and coach these people. And we come in and literally coach their people. We are truly a coaching company. We're not just selling products. I'm not just trying to be a celebrity. Like all I do all day, every day is coach, right? And I coach in person. Yesterday I was in Atlanta. I coach via webinar, coach via online platforms. But when you said I'm a different coach, I'm a pure coach. Okay, where a lot of people that I'm out there competing against are celebrities. They don't really want to talk to anybody. They don't really want to coach you. They don't really want to know your issues and problems. They don't want to come in and coach employees. They want to be celebrities and sell books or sell programs. And I get that. It's scalable. It's easier. It's less friction. But man, if you told me I couldn't coach and I couldn't get up every day and help people get to the next level, I would be miserable. If you took that passion away from me, that's what the good Lord gave me, is that passion of coaching and helping and really affirming and validating people. So that's who I am as a person.
That resonates too. I 100% feel the energy difference there. So I respect that. I want to go back to your beginning here in high school basketball, because I think that it's incredible if you're able to take a group of kids and bring out the best in them. And it sounds like you were coaching Riverdale, right? Where there wasn't a very strong win streak in their history, and you brought them from a organization that wasn't doing much to winning championships. So what was your secret there? Can you walk me through, like, how did you go in there and see what was really going on, and how did you get them from A to B?
The biggest thing that I did is I made a decision at 18 years old. I began studying Stephen Covey, Dr. Stephen Covey. And Covey wrote the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, but he introduced me to a theory called the whole person theory. And he said every person is made up of 4 parts: a body, a mind, a heart, and a spirit. Each of those parts produce 4 different needs, 4 different dimensions, 4 different capacities. And as I'm reading these 7 habits and I'm thinking about this, I'm like, okay, here's what I'm really going to do. I'm going to use sport to teach life. Sport is just a vehicle for me to teach people how to be successful. Therefore, I'm going to learn these 7 habits. Now, remember, I'm only 18 years old when I'm learning these. I'm going to learn these 7 habits, and I'm going to, when I become a head coach, I'm going to teach every player these 7 habits. I'm going to build success schools. I'm going to have leadership academies. I'm going to have life after basketball. I'm going to go to work on the body, the mind, the heart, and the spirit. And I was using this whole person theory, which was unheard of in 1999 at the high school level. Like people would ask me what I'm doing. I'm like, I'm using this whole person theory. I'm tapping into the body, mind, heart, and spirit. And man, you would have thought people thought I flew in from another planet. but I was getting results. And I was winning, and my kids played so hard for me. And people would go, man, I know you're doing, I want to do what you do. That's what they would tell me. And coaches would call me from all over the country, like, what are you doing? And I would tell them I'm spending a significant amount of time on the heart and the spirit and the mind, as much time as I'm spending in the body. You see what I'm saying? So I'm spending as much time working on these parts of their nature, and coaches just never could understand that. So that was really my secret sauce. Is I built, and I'm going to write a book on this at some point, called Competitive Intelligence. I built, you have IQ, EQ, spiritual intelligence, physical intelligence. What I really built in those players was what I would call a competitive intelligence, meaning my players were smarter than other people's players. They were more connected. They had higher degrees of trust, buy into me as the leader. That whole person theory was a game changer for me. I still use that theory today to coach people.
That's so competitive intelligence, where EQ and IQ, it sounds like, is relative to the individual. Is competitive intelligence really the EQ, IQ, and all of that of the group, to where you have that connection and that's what propels you?
Yeah. And here's the deal. I was teaching my team this morning, our topic, we're focusing on culture really hard with my company. Yeah. So every morning I coach my team through these 13 principles that I've created on culture. And today's was on emotional toughness. Mm-hmm. And how is every single person emotionally tough? And one of my rules is we all show up early. We all say please and thank you, and we all pick up trash. It's beyond nobody's too good to do any of those things, right? So I'm trying to build this toughness in my team, mm-hmm. in my unit. And the way you build toughness in a unit is you go through shared struggle. You struggle together, you grapple together, you face adversity together. Now that's easy in sports environments because you get a group together, you put them through all these things, what I call artificial adversity, and you toughen them up, right? Well, in the business world, you can do the same thing. I think the team is a reflection of the leader, and I want tough-minded, competitively intelligent people who have high degrees of personal responsibility. They don't need motivation from me. They need strategy from me, right? Like they come with batteries included. That's the kind of people I'm looking for.
Dude, I love this philosophy. I'm so glad we connected because I think that this is the biggest missing in most coaching programs, in one-on-one coaching, at seminars, masterminds, whatever it is things are so focused on just business and strategy, but the people aren't becoming the people that are able to get the results, that are able to actually step into those identities. And you talk about a concept I want to go a little deeper into, inner engineering. And I think it falls along with this concept, but I'd love to unpack this. What do you mean by inner engineering, and what does that consist of?
Well, I come from a philosophy is you build the man and you build the organization. You build the man first, and the man, let's just take one employee on my team. If I get Melissa, my assistant, who you met, that's my personal assistant. If I get her operating at a high frequency in the body, that means she's taking care of her body. She's exercising. That's her skill. And I'm developing her skill. And she's here mentally. She's totally immersed with focused intensity when she's here. And the heart, she has a high prey drive, a high a passion for what she's doing. And the spirit, she believes in what we're doing. She believes in what we're doing. If I can get all four of those parts operating at a high frequency, the body, the mind, the heart, and the spirit, then that's my version of inner engineering a person. Most people have a missing structure. So think of it this way. What good is it to have knowledge for the mind, but no desire for the heart, right? With knowledge, with no effort, it doesn't matter how much knowledge you have. What good is it to have skill with no confidence? So what I look at when I'm coaching a person is, man, this dude's lacking one thing. He's got the knowledge, he's got the skill. What he don't have is the desire. He don't have the desire to come in early, stay late, make the phone calls, whatever the case may be. Or he don't have confidence. He can't close people. He can't. So what I can do with this theory to inner engineer a person is try to get them to a very high frequency. Okay. And I think of it like a factory. And I don't, this may offend some people, but I don't think so. I call my training facility the Greatness Factory because I feel like we're manufacturing greatness. Like you're coming to us one way, you're leaving another way. What we're doing while you're here at the factory is we're putting you through a process to inner engineer you. So when you leave here, you got more drive, you got more energy, you got more toughness, you got more confidence. That's what the factory is doing, is we're producing great people. And I'm going to build these greatness factories all over the world. I've already spent the money to design these. We're just looking for the land in Nashville to be the first one. And then I'm going to franchise or license these. But these greatness factories inside have 9 different revenue sources, number one. And number two, there's pieces of all of that. There's a place for the body. There's a place for the mind. There's a place for the heart. There's a place for the spirit. So it's not just co-working spaces where people can work or entrepreneurial spaces. It really is a place where if you and your city say, man, I want to become great. I'm ready to reach my potential. Where do I go? Well, you go to the Greatness Factory. And at the Greatness Factory, we're going to tackle all 4 parts of your nature.
That is a really interesting concept. I'm excited to see how that plays out. I'm curious, how do you manufacture something like desire?
I'm a big specialist in activating the prey drive in a person, P-R-E-Y drive. And prey drive is prevalent in animals, specifically dogs. Dogs have a prey drive, and that prey drive, if they're trained, can be activated. It is the ability to find, capture, and kill prey. Okay, it is like an instinctual ability to go get something. And when I'm studying this concept one day, and I'm like, man, humans have prey drive. I know it's referred to in dogs, but the prey drive in a human is the ability to optically see something, like I see something over there I want, and have the intensity and the persistence to go get it. Or it is the ability to imagine something in the mind and have the guts to go get it. So the more I studied every motivational theory that's out there, the more I begin to break down activators of prey drive. Like you have a primary activator of your prey drive. It could be competition. It could be fear of loss. It could be you're inspired by others. It could be an environment you place yourself in. It could be compensation or some external thing. But there's one for you that probably does it better than anything, right? Like mine is fear of loss, which is odd. It's not competition. Like people think because I'm a championship coach, I want to be number one. Well, being number one in most industries outside of a quantifiable number is relative. It's right. It's a relative thing. Like who is really the number one sales trainer in the world?
Right.
Who is really the number one motivator in the world? I've kind of positioned myself as the number one activator of prey drive in the world. Now, the reason for that is my background. And I can tell people I spent 25 years activating the prey drive. Now, how does that play out? Let's say I'm coaching you, and while I'm coaching you, I tap into all four parts of your nature. And the next thing you know, you got a curiosity about you didn't have. You got a new confidence about you never had. You got a new energy about you never had. What I've really done is activate that prey drive that was in you, but maybe dormant. Like my wife is a good example. My wife did drugs every day from 21 to 24 years old. I didn't know her during this period of her life. She was lost, confused. She hung around all types of shady people. She was just a pretty little country girl from West Tennessee. And she had no direction or purpose whatsoever. Her company paid for her to come to one of my workshops on a book I wrote called This Ain't No Practice Life. And she had never been to a personal growth workshop. She never read a personal growth book. So her company said, we see something in you, go to this dude's workshop. So she comes to this workshop, and 2 weeks later, she brings that book back to me, and it's ripped up and highlighted. And she's like, oh, nobody has ever talked to me about any of these things, my potential and how to activate this. So now my wife, let's fast forward 8 or 9 years later, we got married. We have a daughter. We had another son on the way. And now my wife is writing her own books. Now she's leading her own conferences. Now she's at a Rachel Hollis conference today in Florida. So now my wife, so people say like, what happened to her? It's simple to me. Her prey drive was activated. So that is the concept. So imagine if you had 1,000 employees and you knew those employees had more capacity, but you can't seem to get it out of them. I would come in and try to build a high prey drive culture where every person was operating at a high frequency. And that can be activated by a skilled coach.
Now, is this something that people could do exercises in and discover themselves, or do you feel like it's absolutely necessary to have a third-party coach that's helping you reveal that?
I think left to our own devices, we contract and retreat to a place of comfort. Okay. For example, I have a guy on my team that's on my payroll. That's my personal trainer. And I did that because I was tired of messing around. I was tired of paying $50 and getting a trainer. And sometimes I go and sometimes I don't. So I just made a decision to go hire a dude that's full-time. Like if I wanted to work out after this session, I'd say, man, I want to work out right now. He's here. That's what he's here for. And so he works me out typically 6 to 7 days a week. I'm in the best shape I've ever been in. I call my Mayweather weight. I'm at my fighting weight of 175. I feel better than I've ever felt. Why? Because, man, I got serious about it. Now, why couldn't I do that on my own? Because left to my own devices, I work out some, I don't work out some, kind of work out. So to your question, most people need another person to activate it. You can understand what activates your prey drive, but many times it is activated by another person.
Got it. So you talk about something that I'm really interested in. I think all the business people out there will be perking up when they hear this. You talk about you can get to a point where you're no longer having to chase business, where business is just coming to you. And that comes from becoming a person of interest, right? So can you break that down? Like, what does it mean to become a person of interest, and how can you become so magnetic that business is coming to you?
Yeah. Have you read any of Oren Claff's stuff on Pitch Anything?
I can't say I have.
Okay. All right. So Oren Claff was an investment guy who went out and got very, very big investments. And he wrote a book called Pitch Anything, which uses neuroscience and how he made these big pitches. And in the concept, he had a concept called prizing, where you make up your mind when you're selling another person that you're the prize, not them. Okay. Well, to be the prize of anything, you have to have something that other people want. Okay. So to become a person of interest, you have to develop a skill set that other people want. You have to develop something. So you are now the buyer versus the seller. Does that make sense? Like what you want to do is be so valuable and your skill set so strong, or something you bring to the table so in demand that there is large numbers of people who want it. Now you are no longer having to sell.
Yeah. How do you increase your value? And, you know, I guess of all the things you can do to increase your value, what are the ones that make you the most magnetic, the most?
Great question. There are 7 ingredients of a person of interest. Okay. Specific knowledge, meaning you know something other people don't know. You follow what I'm saying? Like I use this for my marketing team. I have a division called Monster Marketer, and I use this former military intel officer as my guy, and he knows freaky things. Okay. I'm saying like stuff like the average person does not know about marketing. And he knows them because he was an interrogator. He was trained in the military to find information, to intel. He understands. I mean, it's just freaking nature. So he's got this specific knowledge, right? And of all the marketing people I've ever worked with, it's like this dude just knows things other people don't know. Okay, that drives up his person of interest score. You see what I'm saying? You also have impeccable skill. If you came to me and said, I want to earn more income in 2020 than I did in 2019, the number one thing I would tell you to invest in is your skill. Your skill. Now, my skill may be communication. It may be connecting. It may be coaching. But if I'm going to spend money, I need to either spend money on my knowledge or on my skill, right? And so people of interest have very specific skills. Why can Tom Cruise charge $25 million a film to do Mission Impossible? He does his own stunts. And even when you watch those Mission Impossibles, I'm watching, I'm like, dang, this dude's good. Like he is so good. His skill level is so high. That drives up your person of interest score. Effort or passion drives up your person of interest. A lot of people come to me for energy. They say, man, you got an energy and a cadence and a conviction about you, a contagious confidence. If you don't have that piece, it's going to be hard. But I do know some people that are just really smart. They don't have that energy, but they are people of interest. You follow what I'm saying? Like they don't have the energy I have, but they got a skill set. Okay. Then you look at confidence. Then you look at likability. Then you look at connectivity. Then you look at networks. And then you look at what I call the free prize, is there's just something about you that I can't get anywhere else. It may be your knowledge. It may be your skill. It may be your desire. It may be your confidence. But there's something about you that kind of elevates you above the audience. Like I'm up for speaking engagements every day, and we lost a speaking engagement yesterday that I thought we were going to get. And I told my person that books me, I'm like, man, there's something we're missing. Who were they picking? Well, the last time they picked a former Top Gun instructor versus me. You know what I'm saying? Like it wasn't he was better than me. It was just he had more status than me. Mm-hmm. He'd flown fighter pilot jets. He was a Top Gun instructor, right? And then when they put those side by side, they were saying, well, Top Gun instructor, former championship basketball coach. He won. Okay. So I'm telling my girl who books me, I'm like, man, we got to raise my status. We got to do a better job of articulating that I'm better than that dude is. Right. And that's really the one thing I learned at 10X. When I spoke at 10X, it justified in me that I was as good as those other dudes. You know, as much as I love all of them, Micheal and Story and Grover. And I walked off the stage going, man, I'm as good as they are. Mm-hmm. Like, what do they have? They just got more status than me. Mm-hmm. And now I'm doing events with Tim Story. Now I'm doing events with Tim Grover. I haven't been able to win Micheal over yet. And so I'm still chipping away at him. I know him.
I love this idea though, because one thing I've studied and realized is we have our skill set and then we have our success, and they're not actually correlated entirely, because there's only a certain level you can get to from a skill perspective, but success is unlimited, right? And that's largely due to your brand, your marketing.
Listen, most people do not have a talent problem. I'm gonna make some notes because you're saying some good stuff here. Most people don't have a talent problem. I don't have a talent problem. I've been doing this 25 years. I know you put me in a room with people. I know you turn your people over to me. I can get them to a higher frequency. So I don't have a talent problem. I got a marketing problem. Exactly. I got a status problem. I got a person of interest problem. Okay. Now, so how many times have you ever been around a person that had higher status than you, but you were better than them? They had been marketed better. So what we're working a lot on this year is better branding with me, better marketing of me, better articulation of my skill set. That's a person of interest thing. So how do you know you're a person of interest? When you have very high demand that is incoming, meaning you need to be tracking how many people are calling you, how many requests are you getting for podcasts, how many requests are you getting for your skills, how many incoming calls are you getting, because you're just that good, man. People want a piece of you. That's when you know you're a person of interest.
That's a great way to look at it, man. I think there's a lot of skilled people and they think they're like really at the top of their class, but unless that's happening to you, man, you're not as good as you think you are.
No, and let me tell you one thing I see every day. People overvalue their skill set. We that's just who we are. We all think we're more valuable than what we really are, you know? And so but it's no different than selling a house or buying a house. The market determines the value of the house, not the appraisal. You know, I've got a house down in Florida that's a 9-bedroom house that I bought for a little over $2 million. Well, it appraised at 2.4 million. So the appraisal didn't determine the value. The market determines the value, right?
Right.
So when you're thinking about this concept, the same is true of us. Like right now, the market is determining my value, your value. Okay. And so the market doesn't lie. Okay. We can inflate that value because it's all perception. And that's part of being a person of interest. So when you see me flying around on this new jet that I've got, or you see me doing these things, that elevates my status with some people, and it infuriates other people. So we had a coaching client not long ago literally call in and said, you know what, I'm just sick of seeing Coach Burt's jet, and I'm sick of seeing this. And my sales guy said, man, Coach Burt was raised by a single mom. He grew up poor. He's been working for 25 years, 80-hour work weeks for 25 years to get to this point. Now, that should inspire you. It shouldn't offend you. It should say, if he can do it, you can do it, right? And the person said, you're right. I'm looking at this all wrong. You know, it was just a silly comment. Like, why would you be upset about another person's success? You know, why wouldn't you say, you know what, I want one of those. I want to fly like that, you know, because it don't come easy, man. And it don't come cheap. So I think we just have to think different about some of this stuff.
I couldn't agree more. And I think a lot of that comes back down to self-value and self-worth. Yep. And your own identity. And I think one thing I love that you talk about is intentional congruence.
Yes.
And it's one thing to be congruent, because congruent's easy. You can be lazy, wake up, you know, at 10 p.m. every day, not work, not make money. Like, you're congruent. But intentional congruence, and being congruent in the things that actually matter to you, that give you the confidence and the self-esteem because you're living aligned with who you want to be. I think that's so valuable. So can you speak to that a little bit? Like, what does intentional congruence mean to you, and why is that so important?
It means two things. It can be in two different contexts. Intentional congruence is when all parts of your life are feeding all parts of your life. Okay, so let's look at it from the whole person theory. One piece of intentional congruence is you're getting your body right, you're getting your mind right, you're getting your heart right, you're getting your spirit right. Everything is congruent. Everything is in aligned. Does that make sense? Like, it's all parts of your nature. That's one way to look at intentional congruence, because if one of those things are not working correctly, you're not going to be congruent. You're going to be misaligned. You're going to be out of alignment, just like a car is. Now, the way I talk about intentional congruence a lot is how everything in my life feeds everything in my life, meaning my coaching business feeds my real estate business. My real estate business turns around and feeds back to my coaching business. My wife is involved in using her talents in the business, meaning my wife is using her talents. I'm using my talents. My kids are involved. My whole life is aligned. Okay. And it's all intentionally congruent. So here's an example. I generate money through my coaching business. That is my primary business. I then go out and use excess cash from my coaching business to purchase unique destination properties around the country. We got the 9-bedroom house in Florida. We got a big lodge in Tennessee, and we use these lodges. We rent these properties when we're not using them for cash flow. And then we use these properties to offer retreats, coaching, private things, customer events. So, and then we use these ourselves personally. So we go to the house in Florida and enjoy it. We lived in the lodge the whole month of December. So this is what I call an intentionally congruent life, right? Where it's like everything's feeding everything. I don't separate out my faith from my business. Okay. So to me, that's intentional congruence. There's no segmentation. It's not like, well, my faith's over there and my family's over here and my business is over here. It's all part of one life that I'm trying to make as congruent as I can. It doesn't mean balanced. Okay. Because balance means different things to different people.
Mhm.
Okay. It means congruent. There's congruency to my life. That's the concept of intentional congruence. Everything feeds everything.
I think that's perfect. And what I hear is not balance, it's more so harmony. That these
That's a
things
great
are
way of
all
saying it. Yes.
in harmony
Yes.
with each other. I love that idea. And I honestly think that if you are stuck somewhere in life, a lot of times it's because something is out of alignment. Your business could be going great, but there's another part of your life that's stuck and not really feeding that. And so I love that concept of just being so intentional about how you're architecting your life and including the people and the things that you're doing. So just some quick advice for people, because I know there's a lot of people that are listening that are at a plateau, right? They're stuck at a certain level. And I'm sure you see this a lot in your coaching. So how can people break through their plateaus? And do you have a system or a process to help people do that?
When you're thinking about energy, I want you to think about three states. It is either dynamic, static, or entropic. Those are the only three states of energy. Dynamic, alive, growing, vibrant. Static, which is where most people live, stuck, complacent, in a rut, reached a ceiling. Entropic, dying, disintegration. The minute a plant stops growing, it starts dying. You see what I'm saying? When you look at air travel, you are either ascending, you are plateaued, or you're descending. Those are the only three states of energy. So for me, your question is right on point. Most people have reached a static position. Now, why? When you study motivational theories, you find out that all motivational theories basically say the same things. We move toward things we want. If we have a biological need, a physiological need, if when I'm hungry, I move toward food. When I'm thirsty, I move toward something to drink. Well, what happens though when all of my needs are met? All of my basic needs are met, right? I have no desire to move toward anything. So what happens is I end up in a static or complacent position. Okay. So I coach a lot of people that earn high incomes, but they're comfortable. They're static. They think about the next level sometimes, but they don't really know how to get there to the next level. And what I try to do is reactivate their prey drive and increase their want. Because if you don't have a higher want, you suppress your prey drive. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay, I have a guy here in Tennessee, and we live in a very, I live outside of Nashville, and where I live is about 30 minutes out, so the cost of living is lower than it is in Nashville. It's much lower than it is in New York City or Chicago or Miami. But a guy said to me once, "Look, I'm selling insurance. I make $250,000 a year. I got a nice wife, I got a nice car, got a nice house. Like, what more do I want?" Well, what you want is your potential. What you want is to impact the world more. What you want is to help more people. Like, until I increase this guy's want, he's not going to move out of a static position because his prey drive has gone dormant. That makes sense. Now, what if I expose him to something? Okay. So what if I expose him to, hey, if you made 500, look at how you could live. Look at what you could have. Look at how much you could invest. Look at how much you could give to charity. Look at what new projects you can do. Because John Maxwell said it best when he said, once you taste significance, success will never satisfy you. Once you really taste something significant, success it'll never satisfy you anymore. That's where you're trying to get to. Most people that have gone static have reached a plateau because they don't have big enough goals in their life. They don't have something significant they want to accomplish. That's what I try to reactivate in that person to get to the next level.
That was very well articulated. That's so interesting. And one thing that comes to mind when I think of you is everyone reads books to an extent. There's a lot of people that are investing in personal development at different levels, but for you, you have clearly set out to master something. And the way that you've educated yourself, I think the way you've thought about education just comes across as very different than most people. So to have the knowledge that you have and to be able to articulate it in these frameworks and contexts that are so powerful, I'm so curious, like, how did you approach education differently than other people to have this, not just knowledge floating around that you can just spit one-liners out, but to where you've created real systems in your life that are providing the results there? How did you approach education differently?
Well, I think being turned on, at 18 years old, I had a mentor that said to me, if you don't read another book this year, read The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I had not been involved in personal development to that point, right? Because I wasn't exposed to it. And So I have this mixture between me. I went to college for 9 years to get 3 degrees. I studied, one of my degrees was doing nothing but studying the top businesses in the world, the Malcolm Baldrige winners, on how effective they were and how efficient they were. Then I have this coaching background to me. Then I have this Covey background to me, right? So I think I've just really, you said it right. I've had a long obedience in the same direction. I haven't tried to be great at multiple things. I've tried to be great at one thing. And I have studied over the last 25 or 30 years, one concept, how to get people to a higher level of performance. And everything I can read on it and everything. Then along 30, 31, I became more of an entrepreneur. I started studying, how to build businesses, assets and liabilities, how to build long-term wealth. At that point, I didn't have a lot of financial intelligence, right? Because I was a basketball coach. I didn't make a lot of money. I didn't care about money. And then 31 years old, I start this business, but I always had this entrepreneurial spirit. And so I think I'm insatiable in how I study, how I read, how I absorb. I spend the weekends studying one person typically. So this past weekend was Oren Claff on his new book, Flip the Script, which is his version of person of interest. And I may watch 12 interviews with him. I may listen to those books 3 times. I go deep when I'm studying a person. I don't just read the book. I'm trying to figure out, how do I pull it together? How do I incorporate what he's doing? How do I repackage this? How do I use this? So I think that's my approach to education. I'm just insatiable and curious. Man, I'm so curious. I'm curious about how are you doing it? How are you doing this? How are you doing that? How are you working with these tech companies? How are you, I'm just constantly just trying to get my hands on as much data and information as I can get. And that's uncommon in today's world. I mean, the average American reads less than 1 book a year. They're not going to personal development seminars. They're not involved in personal growth. They're just literally in a static position. So it's tough. So I'm looking for other people that are hungry like that.
It's so interesting. And, I'm someone who reads at least 1 book a week. So I'm reading 50 plus books per year, but still there's something special about you here. So I want to get deeper into your mind. Like when you are reading a book or consuming information or studying someone, it sounds like you go really deep with that person. What is your actual process for distilling and taking that information and making sure that you actually apply it to something rather than just have this info in your head?
Yeah, the key word there is association. The good Lord gave me certain gifts, okay? And I can't cook. I'm geographically illiterate. I can't fix anything. I was raised by a single mom, so she didn't teach me how to fix anything, like a car. I don't even know how to check the oil on my car. I mean, I'm bad at a lot of things. But for some reason, I have this gift of association, meaning I can listen to you during a podcast or even in this exchange with you and I can get one concept and I'll go, you know what? That I could use that concept right there. Everything I'm doing, I'm trying to extract and use. So I'm reading it for the purpose of using it. I'm not reading it for the purpose of absorbing. Does that make sense? I'm reading it, highlighting, taking notes, making comments, voxing my seat, my president of my company. I'm like, I want to do this. Oh, I see this. Oh, I use this. Like I've been reading Wallace D. Wattles' The Science of Getting Rich. That's an old book. That book was written in the early 1900s, but he talked about this feeling of increase. Rich people always leave other people with a feeling of increase. And then he talks about people do things in a certain way, like you become rich, because he kind of got it down to a science, right? And I'm using that. Well, this month when I'm coaching my students and I'm going, okay, how do you leave people with a feeling of increase? How do you do things in a certain way? Then I'm coaching an insurance company. I'm going, the reason it ain't working because they're not doing it in a certain way they're supposed to be doing. So I'm taking that one concept from Wallace, or those 2 concepts, and I'm immediately applying them. And the faster you learn something and apply it and make it real to you, the more you're going to internalize it. Reading it doesn't internalize it. Reading it and teaching it internalizing it. So if you ever want to learn anything, teach it to other people. Learn it and teach it.
I love that concept you're hitting on, because I truly believe, after having consumed so much information, that reading is not learning to me anymore. Reading is just not learning. Experiencing the result of something, whether it's a positive or negative, that's when you start to actually learn, when you're applying that information. But until you've applied it, you haven't actually learned it. So the greatest mistake there is in learning is the illusion that it's taken place.
Yeah.
And I think that people are like, oh, I read that book. I already read that book. I don't need to read it again. I'm like, well, read it 15 times, because probably didn't get even a quarter of what it was trying to, the gifts that it was trying to give you. So man, I absolutely love that concept. So I got one last question for you, Coach Burt. What does your personal next level look like?
I think the personal next level for me is the same today as it was 15 years ago. I have a desire to be the next Covey. I have a desire to be the next Tony Robbins, the next Cardone, the next big player in the world. And I just have such a big desire to become a national and international thought leader, to help people all over the world. And I feel like I'm just now scratching the surface on that. So that drives me. Many years ago, I had a big whiteboard in my office at one of my houses, and I wrote down my dominant focus, and it literally just said to become the next Covey. Covey had such an impact on me. He died at 79 years old. He impacted millions of people with his work. And I was doing an event with Tim Story, who's become a good friend of mine, and down in Vero Beach, Florida. And we were on a plane flying down there. We spoke at an event together. We got on a plane to fly down to Vero. And over the course of the 2 days, he came to me and he said, you know what? You are the modern day Covey. And I didn't tell him about my dream. I didn't tell him that was my hope. He just sensed that in me. He's like, you're a newer, more dynamic version of Covey because you have this deep methodology about you. Like you're so much more than a surface dude. But so there's this deep side of you that's from Covey. And then there's this dynamic side of you, which is the coach. And he's like, you're the modern day Covey. And I'm like, man, you don't know how that one thing you said to me was what I've been trying to become the last 15 years. Like that validated something in me. And if I could do that honor to Dr. Covey to be that appreciative of what he did for me. I didn't know him personally, by the way. I met him one time. I got one picture with him. He signed my book, right? Man, that work just lives in me. That man deeply affected me. And if I could do that for people, man, it's been a good life for me. If I can do that for millions of people.
That is an incredible answer, man. And I think that you're already doing that. And just in this one exchange, you have something extremely special and powerful. And I have no doubt that you're going to do that, man. It's clearly, as we spoke, it's clearly not a talent thing. More people need to hear about you, and more people need to get this out. So I'm glad I can, give you this platform on the podcast. And on that note, where can people actually interact with you on social media?
Yeah, I think Instagram is probably the best place right now. I respond to all messages that people send me on Instagram. I try to send a video back to people. It's so funny when I spoke at 10X, I had not gotten strong on Instagram yet. And I spoke at 10X, and one of my best friends was on it a lot more than me. And he's like, well, let me check give me your phone and let me check it. And I checked it, and I had like 700 messages, and I didn't even know where to find the messages at that time. Like he's like, man, you need to be responding to these people. Like they're interested in you. So it was planting a seed in my, I'm like, he's right, man. Every person reach out to me, I try to send them a video. I try to send something back to them. I try to let them know I appreciate them. And so Instagram is a great place. It's at Micheal Burt, and I spell it Micheal. My mother spelled my name different, and she said she wanted me to be special or different than other kids. And in those days, they didn't have websites, so she didn't know what kind of problem that was going to create for me later in life. But I do spell it Micheal, Burt, and you could, or just search Coach Micheal Burt, and you'll find me. That's a great place to interact with me. I put out content daily. Also go to CoachBurt.com. We've got over 150 products that I've built over the last 15 years. Everything from boot camps to retreats to coaching programs to online platforms. That's a great place to engage with me. And I coach. I coach every day. So when you sign up for my programs, you don't get somebody else. You get me. And
that's actually pretty big deal, because when you get to Coach Burt's level, you get a lot of teammates or employees that are taking over, but to have him still actually coaching you, considering where he's at, is pretty incredible.
Yeah. And I enjoy it. That's who I am as a person. So that is a differential factor for things. So thanks for saying that.
Yeah, I love that, man. Well, it's been an honor to talk to you, man. It's been really amazing getting inside your brain and seeing how you operate. And I think people are going to take a lot away from this conversation. So again, man, really appreciate you being here.
Well, I want to thank you, because I do lots of interviews, and your questions are so well thought out, and your ability to respond quickly when you hear something and pivot to go deeper on a concept. I wrote down in my notes that we need to be using this interview that you've done with me for all of our salespeople. They need to be using it. They need to be sending it out to people, because you've asked the great questions that's made for a great interview. And so thank you for doing your homework. And more importantly, I mean, you're quick on your feet. The way you're thinking is really fluid. And that tells me you're learning. That tells me one thing: you're learning, you're growing, you're expanding, you're absorbing content at a very rapid rate. So congratulations on that, man. You're going to do some big things in the world.